So on the day of the burial of my mother, who passed away on April 1st, I also completed production of another episode of Star Trek Legacy, a spoof title of Patterns of Force from classic Trek, but having really nothing to do with that. It's just a funny title, Spoof Patterns of Farce. So we're going to shoot this between now and the Memorial Service events of May 11th. So this is between April 13th and May 11th. And yeah, so we have a new Star Trek story. The March cards, even though technically Queen Bee Studios is kind of no longer a thing, March Cards and Slick Otter Productions, even though we did a very short run, and we knew it was temporary between December and early March, that probably Queen Bee Studios wasn't going to continue. It was going to go back to On Location Cat and Slick Otter shortly, just because, yeah, we were just doing it to call it that, just because, yeah, what was it going to be? But yeah, so this is as if another network has picked up the Legacy and ordered up a second pilot. So in a sense, this is a second pilot. Although the other story happened, the other story is canon, but the start date of this one is very similar because we screwed up the start date last time. We were equating February, when the other story was written, February and March, with February and March in the future, and we shouldn't have. So here we have to equate this one with April and May in present, because we started with that. So yeah, it's April and May now. So it's April and May. That's what the timeline, this new Legacy timeline is. Just have to go with it. So yeah, it's the other one was February of 2406, and this one is going to be like April and May of 2406. It is a pseudo sequel follow-up to the events of Starship Picard, mainly, but it has the Chimera refit in it. We have the bridge rebuilt, and for the first, and we had a pseudo engine room constructed for the bioship story. So we have an engine room. So we have a warp core, an engine room, and all that. And we rebuilt the warp core out of a dollar store item. It looks kind of like a bong, but it's not. And we have water bottles. But yeah, we painted it up to look like a warp core. So yeah, there's a scene in the engine room in here. And we get to see legendary Sarah Esteban, who was a character who inspired the stories. The character that inspired the backstory of the Starship Chimera fan film, and that she was the one that commanded the Starship Exeter during the Dominion War and rescued Nicholas Locarno, Cito Jaxa, and young Vince Mahoney and young Crass from the Cardassian prison planet Ducala. They return to the Cardassian planet Ducala in this story, and we find out, actually, things have been changed, either by way of vicariously through Q, or Lower Decks changing the timeline, or whatnot, as has been addressed earlier, but now we find even more. We find some interesting things at the old encampment, and we go back there. We don't necessarily do any flashbacks, we just go there to visit that. Kal Kat March Cards idea worked out. It's not based on any specific Next Generation DS9 or Voyager episode or anything like that. It's loosely Star Trek Picard. It's loosely a continuation of that, more so than anything. With our crew, what is our crew doing in 2406? I know that technically in the timeline, if you have the star dates, right now it's 2402. But in this version, it's a little later, just to kick it ahead. So yeah, got a Legacy, 90 pages, just completed, hot off the press, and yes, I'm going to attempt to improve on the silly space battle at the end of Star Trek Picard Season 1. Although I'm sure the fleet will be completely comprised of of stuff we make up from somewhere else because we can't afford to draw any kind of AI fleet, space fleet, cut and paste fleet. We can't do that. We don't have the technology to do that. So I don't know how they're going to pull that off, but I'm going to show it. So that we can have Commander O get her butt kicked by Sela. Well, that's reason enough. And it also was a parable of Kira and the Kai as well. It's also a parable metaphor of some Middle East tensions. But recently, Mark's Cards was just here. This is Saturday. Because it was an event where Mom was burial, and Mark's Cards was here. So we had there's no film footage. We had discussion of how to do the Middle East tension thing without doing the Middle East tension thing. So yeah, and it was decided that not to go overboard and mention a lot of names, but maybe just tweak the names a little bit so they're not quite them. So Israel would become Iggy or something, or yeah. So you're not directly saying, oh, this is a Palestinian Israel thing. It's not really, not at all. It's silly track. This is not a story just making fun of that. It's a story. It's kind of a sequel to a little bit of a follow up to the DS9, yes, and in the other show at one point. So yeah, it's kind of weird to break out a story, break out the characters, and then write a story based on the character. Kind of weird to do that, but that's what I did. What did I want to do next? How did I want to further the story of Crass, now the captain of the ship? That's pretty how I would do it. She finally gets to do a brief away mission. Things like that. Anyway, so that is Patterns of Farce. It is April 15th, tax day. I don't do that. Anyway, so here we have, we had to clean up some of the sets and move things around, and cleaned up the closet, all that kind of thing. Put the other stuff back, and yeah, so there had to be other things done first. Vacuum the floor, make sure that it's not too dusty and gross in here, and also touch up some figures. And it's already almost 4, so there's probably no filming teaser tonight. Well, everything is ready to film teaser in the morning. Start to film the teaser. Yeah, so to touch up some figures that were flaking off. It is very thin poster paint, and it comes off. It doesn't dry all the way, so we gotta have them to dry all the way, or it'll come off again. Yeah, so we have Talisman and Kestra and everybody there. There's the counselor lady over there, the new one, Wilson, and Odo, and there's Bashir, slightly painted better Bashir, and Garrick. We've done up a Garrick, and we've done up Tendi again. We keep having to redo her face every single time. Yeah, so so there they are, and they're on the planet set. And they're not all in this scene. They're just on the planet set drying. This is the planet set, and it is not the set from the Transformer story, although it looks like it. It is brought out new and put up, yeah, to be in it. So it wasn't. We didn't literally use the set from the last episode. In other words, we didn't just leave it there. It's different. It might be the set from the last episode, but yeah, so yeah. I'll turn it around then. So yeah, on the here it is on the that mom's room set thing. Yeah, so even though we greenlit a series, it's not a series. It's a second movie, which makes a little more sense. It's a little more feasible to do a second movie and maybe a third one once you write something. But yeah, so Slick Otter and On Location Cats are back. They will be doing this one. Queen Bee Studios was only a brief thing from roughly December to about early April, and then we don't want to do that anymore. Yeah, yeah. So dedicated it to Mom, and then went from there. Yeah, and one of the other videos also there was mentioned that there was a original series Star Trek character who was a Brown with an E, and it was the wrong one. Actually, her name was Katie Brown, and she was in Wink of an Eye. She did not kiss Spock in that episode. She did Mac on Kirk though, but not Spock. Anyway, it's the one where they were like in and out of phase or whatever, and they were faster than the other people were. Which would mean the episode would be over in like 2 seconds. Yeah, that one. Anyway, so yeah, this is the story crew thing we were gonna do more. It doesn't look like they had to clean up the room, clear out the junk in the closet and stuff, and move everything around, and it took the day, better part of the day. So yeah, we're not behind in any way because we just started. So so if I do decide to do a little tonight, I could, but no, I better let them dry first, because it's probably why some of them flaked off, is they weren't dry all the way, and they were put in an episode immediately, and then stuff flaked off of them because they redid Dr. Crusher there, even though Dr. Crusher isn't in it. Yeah, so everybody's here. I looked at all the characters. I also had to figure out which ones were which and which ones were going where, because there was a little bit of a problem with Sylvia and Alondra being mixed up in the last one. To make sure that they were not mixed up in this one. But yes, and now Emoji is the correct character. It's a Dr. Crusher. It's a younger Dr. Crusher. He was seen briefly in the bronze scene. It wasn't her. It wasn't her then. It was just, yeah, she wasn't supposed to be there, but yeah, she was. But yeah, so she's another Crusher character. Also, you can make Commander O who shows up later either make her a Rolaren or doctor up the Dr. Tabby character. But that would be confusing though, I think, with the Tabby character, because you're already using her as Seela and Yar, the Seela and Yar and the other one. So it's probably the Ro, but it's like a different Ro. It's not the Ro. Anyway, yeah, it shouldn't matter. Also, I suppose they want me to chime in on the lower decks. We'll do one final season. Yeah. Well, they're kind of running out of ideas, so I can see why they would do that. So that's all I got to say on that right now. I don't really know much other than that at the moment. So that's why. I don't have really much just on that. This story sort of retcons into the canon some of the events of the last one and some of the events of the Lower Decks one, because I didn't like how they ended last season, but this one sort of backtracks a little bit from the last episode with some of the characters. I won't give it away, and says, yeah, maybe they did go, maybe they're gone, maybe they are, maybe their clones are just running around. Because, yeah, they kind of can't be. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, so that's what I decided with the story, how the story was going to break down, how they were going to do something with Deep Space Nine and Bajor, and make an allegory parable about Middle East stuff going on without necessarily going there. Because we don't literally want to go there and get flagged off YouTube for mentioning that war that's going on over there, If we don't mention that directly what it is, yeah, if we change some of the names around, you'll get the idea anyways. Yeah, so we're not going to pick a side. I'm just going to say it. Yeah, so anyways, so there's yeah, the Star Trek fan film. We're supposed to have fun with a fan film. We're not supposed to make it serious. It's called Patterns of Farce is the name of this one. A parody of Patterns of Force, the episode with the space Nazis. But the Cardassians were basically a rewrite of that anyway. So when they did Deep Space Nine, they were a rewrite of those characters from that episode. And the Bajorans were a rewrite of the Vulcans, but they made them slightly different and made them more of a captured people kind of thing, parable. And the Cardassians had occupied Bajor, but then they left out of their captured people. You can probably guess who they're talking about. But yeah, But yeah, that's what they did, and some fans were complaining that well, Ira Stephen Bear was complaining about the war, that thing that was going on over there, attacks and stuff, and he was commenting on not liking a video that came out on the Ira Stephen Bear was the creator of Deep Space Nine, one of the showrunners of Deep Space Nine. So yeah, he was the guy with the blue beard, Deep Space Nine, and he was being a celebrity, putting his 2 cents in about other people's stuff, other celebrities, and politics, and they usually shouldn't do that because they're welcome to their opinion, but if they go a little too far and try to make their opinion matter to other people, then it's a little off. And some people were complaining about what he had. He joined a group, a petition thing, to boycott or annex or something after somebody's speech from the Oscars on another movie that was on the similar topic, similar group. And yet the others failed to realize that Ira Stephen Bear would be for the other side in that conflict. Because Kira is, in Deep Space Nine is basically, the commander lady is basically batting for the team that's going after the... Yeah, she was kind of a bad guy. To them, at least. And she was a resistance fighter and a bad guy. So she would be the other team. So it's not inconsistent with Ira Bear's character. He would totally be for the resistance fighters. Because that's what Kira was. So it's not inconsistent with his character at all. He would have done that. And he was at a convention. I met him at a convention, Star Trek convention years ago. And he's what's the word? He's, even back then, not an anarchist, but something like, little like that. He's kind of weird, and he likes to stir up trouble, like an early troll. He's an early troll. So if he was saying a bunch of stuff on the internet, don't take him seriously, because it's Ira Stephen Bear. That's basically it. It's Ira. He's just being a goofball. Don't take him seriously. Just don't. How can you take him seriously? He still has that blue beard. What the... Dude. It was funny when you were 25 or 30 years old. It's just kind of sad now, dude. Dude. It's 30 years later. What are you going to do? Oh, but yes. But I guess if you can still rock that, why not? But yeah, so here we are on the set and Starship Locations Legacy, movie 2, The Patterns of Farce. Yeah, so we'll see what. So it's movie 2. So yeah, we can't greenlight another 8-episode series of hour-long to 2-hour-long episodes. That would be too much. But another fan film movie, that is totally doable. Because we did 3 Transformers ones in a row, so why not do another Star Trek one? It can be considered the darker middle chapter if they do a third one. But it is fun. It's a fun story. It's a sort of a follow-up to the Dominion War and all that stuff. It's a follow-up to the Fearful Symmetry as well. It doesn't have as much mom ideas in it as the others. I think we're done with those, but it has a few sayings thrown in there, but not enough to say, oh, she thought of some of these. No, she didn't. No, none of that in there. I would and no, Captain Esteban is not mom. It's not a Mary Sue. Captain Esteban is, yeah, totally not her. Although she gets some of the sayings. The character was invented, brought up from the Chimera story series that we did in-house back in the 2000s and late middle 2000s, and in the movie, the Chimera movie. But I think she's only mentioned in the 2019 movie, offhandedly. Like, this is the person that saved Locarno and Crass and Ceto's double or whatever, and Mahoney. And so we get to meet her in this story. So she wouldn't really be mom. If there was a character that was yeah, I don't know who like Mom would represent if she was in a Star Trek story. She wouldn't be in a Star Trek story, but if she was, she would probably be the Doctor or something. Probably a Klingon Doctor. Yeah, she wouldn't be. And there's no character like that in here, so yeah. So she would be Ayer, basically. Yeah. She would have been Ayer back in the. But yeah, but yeah, yeah, so, yeah, no nepotism there. So we're yeah, this is fine. This is making of, and yeah, I don't want to really. The characters are drying. They're on the set. Um, and yeah, there's no Mary Sue's really in it. I mean, a fan film generally isn't Mary Sue anyway, just because of the nature of what it is. But yeah, the star date was even wrong in the pilot episode. Yeah, we calculated the star date wrong, and it was because we were lining it up with February of this year, February, March when we shot it. So then this one is late April this year, lining up. It's not supposed to be, the timeline's not supposed to be screwy like that. But the Star Trek timeline is supposed to be different in that each season goes along in a different way. Just it's a different way. It's a different path. So that 2401 already happened and all that stuff. Now we're a little bit ahead in 2406. That's all you need to worry about, if anything. So yeah, so this story that story was 4 months earlier in February. This will be April. Yeah, April and May. I guess late April, early May. Part of the episode. Yeah. And it's addressed very briefly, as you learn from other fan film people, that just address it very briefly and move on. So they mention the captain's log. Oh yeah, the star date's kind of screwed up, and now this is the star date, 82405. That wasn't before. That was wrong. It was Q. He messed with it. Yeah. But now it's fine. He's not around. He could show up later. Well, so they need to completely rejigger Starfleet Academy so that it takes place in the time of Picard. Because nobody cares about Discovery Season 5. We're watching it, but man, we're gonna launch a couple of ships down to a planet even though we have guns and shields and torpedoes and could do that without. We're gonna drop some ships onto a planet to crash into a mountain to stop an avalanche. Didn't think that we could use the deflector dishes on the ships, fly in low and go pew and push the avalanche away. That'd make a little more sense. No, we're just gonna crash them, and then everything will be fine because there's the shields. Yeah, they didn't think that out too well. And I hope that new show does not kill off the two most interesting characters, the gay ones and the trans ones. If they kill those people off, that's gonna not be cool. Just stop doing that. Don't kill them off. They're Gray and Tal are the two most interesting characters in that show. Not Burnham, she's not interesting. Yeah, Janeway could wipe the floor with her back in the day. Yeah. Cisco could wipe the floor. So they'll be like, what? Who is this girl? She's kind of annoying. I don't like her. No, the actress is fine. She's just given, Sequoia Martin Green is fine. She's just not given good material to work with. The new show, they didn't ask. They didn't ask us. The Lower Decks, they did. That's why it's better. So, but yes, probably not. Hopefully they'll figure out a way to bring Locarno back so he can marry Ezri Dax in the future in 2387. Or maybe the timeline's changed by that and the other thing because of the rescue and all that. Maybe that's all changed. Yeah, maybe it's like okay because of the Romulan supernova and then the synth thing and then the other thing happened, the 9/11 parable. Maybe they decided, okay, well they can't actually, meet at all. And no, Bashir's not going to end up with her either because that's stupid. The Adventure class Chimera A is in this. So it's been refit, and they're out on their missions with a Captain Crash the Klingon. And they return to Daklala. Ooh, and some other alien planets at the Cardassian border. How are they going to get to Cardassia without causing a stink? Well, I found a way. They could go back there and have a look and see what's going on with the 4 of them that were rescued by Sarah Esteban. They have Admiral Sarah Esteban, so she can step in. But they needed to get a Cardassian who was on their side. So, it's really obvious who they would get. Mr. Gaddock. Exactly. Mr. Gaddock. And Mark's cards was all, excellent, Mr. Garrick needs to be in it. But also, there needs to be a scene from our Slash story that we wrote years ago that no one has ever seen. Well, some people have seen it. It's called The Blasphemy. It's a Deep Space Nine episode where Kira and Kai Wynn have a fight, only to discover that Kai Wynn is really Odo in disguise. He wants to make out with Kira. And then later on, and also Bashir has a scene where he's with Garrick, and they profess their love for each other. Basically, they have an intimate moment in which they try on each other's shirts, and then go from there. Oh my! So they've also been known to kill each other on occasion and bring each other back to life. So yes, so there will be a little odd oh my's in this, but not as much as the last one with Sulu running around going, I'm Sulu. Yes, we do include the gay characters affectionately and throw them in there and put them in the story, and nothing bad happens to them because we don't want to do that bad happen to them. Anyway, so Mr. Garrick is going to help the Chimera A on this planetary space mission to find the last remaining remnants of the Maquis. That should be exciting. I guess the Dominion didn't take all of them out. Some of them are still around. And you can probably guess who some of them are just by the nature of, who was left at the end of the Deep Space Nine. You can probably figure it out, so I won't give it away too much, but yeah. You can probably guess. There's some people left. Yeah, and it has something to do with Mahoney and Crass, of course, and other ones. And another one. And you're probably, this is watching the making of, so you probably know that B'Elanna Torres is gonna show up. So just she shows up. That's a couple of scenes in here. So she shows up. So we get B'Elanna and a B'Elanna and Miral moment. Her daughter Miral and B'Elanna. So we get her to represent sort of the other side in a strange conflict that was going on. B'Elanna. Also, we get some dressing down of B'Elanna a little bit by the lady commander. This is funny. There's a funny scene in there. Yeah. There's a funny scene. It's funny. So there should be some good stuff in there. Yeah, don't take it too seriously. It's a comedy. It's a fan film. Yeah. A love letter to Deep Space Nine yet again. So. Actually, this one is more of a sympathy card to Deep Space Nine. And yeah, we did film ahead of time before the station was destroyed. I did film the station model was destroyed. I did film 15 minutes of beauty passes from the old episode, and I'll just use some of those. Yeah, and I don't know how we're going to do that space battle at the end, but there is going to be a space battle, and yeah, we are going to improve on. It's a parody of the Picard season 1 space battle at the end because we had to do that because we absolutely had to do that. And of course, Mark's cards is on the same wavelength, and he goes, "So you're kind of doing the Kira Cat fight, but the space battle." Yeah, pretty much. Well, Commander O is going to meet up with some very interesting people. She's in it as one of the bad guys. Excellent. So yeah, we will see. Commander O will probably be one of the other figures. They never made a figure of her, so it'll be one of the other guys. So yeah. And she knew all of Starfleet security and stuff, so yeah, it's going to be kind of hard to fight her in battle. She knew all of stuff. Oh, they're gonna need help. They're gonna get it. But yeah, so yeah, I don't want to give away too much. I mean, we're not there yet. We're not even started yet. Okay, starting production on the 16th, I think. And yeah, so we're going to be rolling, do a scene. No making of right here. I'm gonna go right to the scene. I will stop the camera if something goofy is happening, and I'll start it up again. All right. So we don't have a lot of extra stuff. So let's go. Making of. Just completed the teaser, real quick too. I breezed through it. There's a little more on the bridge of the concept. I had to build the concept bridge, so I decided to stop here and do a little making of stuff here. Yeah. And chime in a bit on that. Lower Decks season 5 is the final season, and I understand why they decided that Cedo should have died years ago. We get it as fans and all that stuff. It doesn't make sense for her to be revived in Silly Trek, but it's Silly Trek. So in Silly Trek, people don't die necessarily; they come back. And Star Trek has revived a bunch of people over and over again. So that was the deal with that. So our version of Cedo is sort of a pseudo-clone, anyway, and was originally, as we'll find out in this episode. Mahoney and Cedo and some of the crew return to Duklala underneath the underground stuff, and we're going to find some stuff out about that. This is a sort of a follow-up to a story that wasn't really part of the canon. It's in the book versions of Silly in Space, kind of. As mentioned in the Chimera movie, that this is how Nick Locarno got redeemed in the Dominion War. Being trapped in a prison planet, he was in prison for many years. So it was like, well, if he's in prison for many years, like Tom Riker was there. That's Tom Riker. He's done his time. So release him. So that makes sense. Mahoney and Crass were young. They were teenagers when they were found on the planet. But what were they? Were they clones too? Were they doing some kind of weird experiment? Because she kind of looks like B'Elanna Torres as a Klingon, and or they? Because B'Elanna Torres was a Maquis agent before with Chakotay before she was on Voyager. They made a clone her, so she was there too. It would have been an aged up clone though, if it was her, or they had knowledge of her from earlier. The Cardassians are weird though. They could have, and yeah, the Cardassians were clearly a reinvention of the Patterns of Force. Bad guys, the sort of pseudo-Nazi bad guys from classic Trek. Anyway, that's what they were, and the Bajorans were clearly some sort of Palestinian group, Palestinian-like group, and these really Palestine thing, which is still an ongoing conflict. It was back in the 90s. It was earlier than that, and it still is to this day. So yeah, we have although now they have different weapons, so yeah, they can fight off Iranian drones, blow them out of the sky. They can, but apparently they're really bad at receiving aid. Anyway, so I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, but yes, So a werewolf, fuzzy face idea here, story elements. It's supposed to be directed by Cowpoke. In the credits, but clearly that's all Kal Kat anyway, so it's fine. And I played Cedo's return here as a direct three or 4 months later to the crew in this scene. That's 3 or 4 months later, which it is in real time. And the timeline has been changed by Q in the pilot, so the timeline is different. The timeline is going on differently. So Lower Decks is ending, and yeah, crew. So I redress the set for the a brief bridge scene on the concept, and then go on to the first ever time they show in one of these stories the engine room of the Starship Chimera. They're always talking about the engine room, but never showing it. And I wrote this scene going like, they're launching the ship, and we want to see the engine room. Yes, and a guest star will appear there, but it's not Scotty. It's not who you think. Wouldn't be Scotty anyway. But yeah. So yeah, I wanted to do that. I'm assuming that Alondra LaForge there is on assignment temporarily, and that younger Dr. Crusher is Emoji in the script, Emoji Boyd. boys. And it's correct now. It's not a Janeway. It's because that would be the other one. That would be Abby Hertzman. Kurtz. That'd be Abby. This is emoji. So yeah, she would be about 19 or 20 at this point. So would Abby. So yeah, they'd be roughly the same, slightly older than Tam and Kestra. Yeah, and Alondra would be in her 30s, and so would Sydney, who shows up later, be in her 30s. They both be in their 30s, so they're later. And I think for Lower Decks, they could totally do a spinoff, but yeah, they are getting a bit too old, which is kind of funny. So they decided, we're going to end it after this 5 years. The lieutenants are not Lower Decks anymore. I could see them why they would want to do that. It wasn't just Kurtzman being a dick. It's more like, they're not Lower Decks anymore. They're kind of assignments and stuff. And it gets too close to 2385, where they would end up with a can of worms, and they'd be like, how do we put that in there and do that? What they could do to be ballsy is they could make the next Star Trek movie, instead of doing or the Academy story, set in that universe, and not do 32nd Century, because really nobody cares. This 32nd Century stuff is a little too much too late. It's weird. Don't do the Academy in the 32nd Century. Make a movie special, like you did the Section 31. Just be one movie, not a series, just a movie. TV movie about the Academy, fine. Get it out of your system. Because nobody really wants to see Star Trek 90210. We saw that with Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek 2013 and Star Trek 2016, where we had Star Trek 90210 with young Kirk, Spock, and crew. And really, they were way too young to be those characters. And they were completely, incomplacent. It did not make sense. Stranger Worlds is a rewrite of all that, so they should go there. The next movie should be a Lower Decks movie. They should do they joke and tease about that, and they show like a lower, do a balls out animation Lower Decks feature film, like 90-minute feature film. Just go, that's what they need to do for like the final season. After the final season, they need to do a movie. That's what they need to do. And if they really want to be ballsy even further, do a live action feature film with the actors that played the animated characters done up in costume and all proper Star Trek feature film. So, but until they do something that ballsy, my fan films will be there. Well, the Legacy, Star Trek Legacy this season. So we'll do them, but this run here is not another 8 to 10 episodes of a season. It's just a few fan films every few months, because that's all On Location Cats has left for that, and there just isn't. Queen Bee Studios is not doing it because it's gone again. but yeah, that was only going to be a short run anyway. So On Location Cats and Slick Otter are doing this one. So yeah. I don't really have studios. I call them studios, but I have a room in a house. So what it ends up being is, call it a studio, and it runs out of money immediately upon being filmed. Basically, we're out of money immediately. It's not for profit. It's not. There's no AdSense. There's no Kickstarter. I just film a Star Trek fan film with a lot of my different voices, and sometimes March Cards pops by and does the cameo. So yeah. And that's perfectly fine. So yeah. But yeah, the whole so this is movie 2 of possibly 3. So it's the darker middle chapter, and falling back into these voices and characters is fun, because it's like wow, I know these characters. They work so well. Yeah. It's like you putting up with with those rejection letters many years ago for the Star Trek contest. That stuff was added to what actually was in the rejection letter. Say, he understands the characters of Star Trek and does them well. That was a separate note that has been lost. That was not part of the rejection letter. The rejection letter was a form letter for each of those shows that said, we're not doing that right now. There was a separate letter that has been lost for the DS9 one that said, you understand the characters in Deep Space Nine, and that's very good. But yeah, they wouldn't say that about Voyager in the beginning first season. They didn't know about that. The Voyager one, the comments and the extra comments that have been lost the Voyager one that I did was that we did too many Tuvok episodes that season. Whereas the Deep Space Nine one was more, yeah, you understand the characters, but we wanted to do something else with the Dominion. And you weren't part of that. You know the characters, Odo and Quark and Cisco pretty well. But yeah, that was an extra note. That's gone. Actually, the rejection letters are gone too. Also, we have the Voyager one. It had been stamped twice. The script had, so I looked at it twice. They dug it out of the pile twice. Once in season 2 and again in season 6, and looked at it. It was stamped twice. Of Voyager, so they were interested. But they just couldn't fit it into a Tuvok. I think season 6 had a lot of Tuvok in it too. So well, we can't do another Tuvok one this season. But if you look at that episode, though, it was kind of an excuse because it was really a Janeway episode for the Voyager one. Tuvok was in it, yes, but it's really a Janeway episode. But yeah, it's Mary Sue's. And of course, this next episode that we're doing here now, currently, is a sequel to Fearful Symmetry and The Arbiter. It's a sequel to those 2 stories from last season, so that's a sequel to both of them. So yes, Tuvok will make a cameo in this one. Not Janeway, but Tuvok. Ew, yeah. And it's very exciting. Garrick will have a cameo. Not really Andrew Robinson. I will play the voice. Frutty guy will play the voice. But yes, so that should be funny. And yes, the Slash will start again. So yeah, Moji and Abby, or Abra, are based loosely on 2 people that are currently in their 20s from the church. But it's loosely. It's not really them. And their personalities and orientations have been slightly switched. So Tam and Kestra in the story are roughly them, but switched the other way. So yeah, their orientation is switched. And they're slightly younger. But no, none of them are anybody underage currently. They're all they're over 18, all of them. All those other characters are based on, they're over 18. There are no children in this story at all. There are no children, so yeah. Why would there be? It's just one guy doing voices and pitch bending his voice to sound like a girl. Oh, I'm a girl in space. Yeah, there ain't nobody else here. Anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna ramble on and keep going, I guess. Do the rest of the thing here. Yeah. Action. So the card died. So we're gonna try this other card, and it should work because it looks brand new. It looks like it just was taken out of the package and put in the camera case with some candy. Hopefully the candy was wrapped and it didn't get in there. That'll screw up the camera. But yeah, so here is another card, testing some footage, and gonna stop and see if it worked. The cast assembles on the bridge. Well, most of the initial cast here is assembled on the bridge in the making of here. And we have the cast of the Starship. And yes, it looks different from the other timeline where in the distant future they have it on the holodeck or whatever. But you figure on the holodeck version they probably did what they did with the Enterprise D, and they made it look like it used to look back before the refit. That's probably what they were doing. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Oops. So there's no time schedule for this. It has to be. The only thing is it has to be done before the 6th of May. It's the 16th, but doing good. Did 16 pages of it. We've done basically, if they were separated into acts of 6 acts or 3 3-part acts, this would be the end of the first act up to the first commercial break, basically after the credits. So yeah, first act of 6. So 1/6. Yeah, 16 pages out of 90. So yeah. Next will be a brief scene on the bridge when they come in contact with Garrick. Coming up next. We'll do that in the morning when there's more light. There's just not much light in here. It's late. And we could do another meeting scene, but I don't want to rush ahead. I don't need to do that. Every time we rush ahead and try to do another scene, we end up having to reshoot that scene because it got screwed up somehow, like somebody's blurry or something. So we don't want to do that. Here is, and this other card is working fine. Our card conked out. It was conking out during the Transformer thing. And now it is officially conked out, so we got rid of the card. But yeah, it seems to be fine. Yeah, so we got the Cardassian setup thing. So we explore the story of the Ducala colony in this episode. And that. Without going to do time travel, without returning to that. Also, it's a little confusing as to the star date, but that was just a mistake. We wanted to do star date 82405 just to be funny. And and not realizing that 82405 wouldn't really be Valentine's Day. 82405 would be May. So that's the gag. Yeah. It was Valentine's Day to us here. Currently, at the time, it was a little after Valentine's Day when that was done. But now it is it's April, April 16th, and yeah. So to us, it is 4 months later. But yeah, that's the nature of silly in space, I guess. Q messing with them. This isn't like the Transformers story where it jumped ahead, and it was like, oh, the second movie was years later. The third movie was even further on in the future. And then they retconned at the very end and said, they pulled back to, it was all Q. Or some Q-like entities in that one. That was already done in a smaller version in that Valentine's episode. So we don't need to do that here in this universe. This is happening. This is not a dream sequence at the end. It's kind of, in a sense, a reverse Wrath of Khan. It's subverting expectations. Because Khan was, of course, Ricardo Montalban, and he was a Latin guy. So there's this admiral on the ship, and she's the Admiral Esteban. Basically, she's would be the red herring that says, okay, the red herring means it's somebody that's you think is going to be the villain and ends up not being the villain. So she's the red herring. She's not the villain. She's going to take the ship, go on the mission. She's not the villain. The villain shows up in the third act, a spoof of several of the Marvel Star Wars movies. We're going to have the villain show up at the end. A Picard villain is going to show up at the end. We've got Londa and Sylvia LaForge in there on the other ship. Temporarily, they're temporary guests. There's a slight error with the other one answering the commander about the temporary thing twice. Just cut that line out. Don't include it because you can kind of see also behind her is Jessie character. She shouldn't be there. That scene's screwed up. We don't need to fix it though because she doesn't need to say the line. Really, she doesn't need to say it. As for the bridge scenes, they seem all right. We'll have to see the dailies. We seem to have. It's working out. It's working out. Easily be able to get through part one of the 3 major acts tomorrow. I would assume, by the evening, so easily. It's just a matter of moving the sets around, setting things back up for next scene. It is a bottle show. They go to a planet only twice and only briefly. They also go to a landing site that's only briefly. The meeting room looks a specific way from this angle. It's one of the Transformers. I think this meeting room was the lair of the Primes, but sure, now it's being repurposed as the Star Trek one. So the Transformers fans from the other channel think this can go like, oh, that looks like the lair of the Primes. It is. It's the lair of the Primes. I'm pretty sure that's what this is. But it looks cool, so we used it. Also, the bridge is a little busy where they phony L cars are painted on like a Pollux painting, and you have to make sure not to get anybody blurry against that busy background, especially if they kind of match the background. They're gonna blend in like. Now on this gray background, it's fine because nobody's gray, so. Except for Garrick, he's gray, so maybe it'll throw that off. He's greenish gray, so I might throw it off. Maybe I'd blend in. But yeah, so we have basically the crew deciding on a mission, sort of clandestine Section 31-esque mission back to Cardassia, which should be fun. And then, of course, Deep Space Nine. It's funny that they go to Cardassia first, and then they go to Deep Space Nine. It's kind of interesting. Because they're not terribly interested in going to DS9, but then they do. So yeah, I like how they're putting that together. It's not a mirror universe story, even though some of the rest a little like it. And so why is Sandra Talisman in that scene looking like she got all messed up at the Borg or something? That comes up later. Apparently she accidentally assimilated and they didn't fix her yet. It's just funny. She was assimilated. Anyway, so yeah. Done for the evening, partly because of the giant turkey burgers that I ate, and the tryptophan from the turkey burgers is kicking in. Yeah, I don't know. The guy's into spores and mushrooms. He probably isn't into dating anybody. He's just into spores and mushrooms. That's a little weird. Anyway, so here we have our main characters, and there's a reverse Wrath of Khan. We have sort of the twist being, okay, the Latinized, you think it's going to be the bad guy, Admiral isn't the bad guy. He's a good guy. Also the idea that they have a disabled, differently abled woman in a wheelchair as a commander, as a strong commanding force on the ship, pokes fun of the right-wing ableist guys on the internet who are like, oh, there can't be disabled people in Star Trek, which is not Star Trek. Star Trek totally had people with disabilities in it. They just managed to overcome in many cases. So this one did too. It's a famous commander. It also kind of goes to explain how Locarno and the others were able to help out, and they weren't, because she was already wounded or something. Something happened to her in battle, I guess. And, well, she might also have a debilitating ailment as well as the battle. But yeah, she was able to go into the Battle of Beta Z and save the fleet and everything. And then she was injured. So they got to auxiliary control and they rescued the ship. Yeah. We don't know how exactly Nick Locarno figured out what Tom Paris was up to, because they hadn't been rescued yet, but maybe he just knew that he was going to be on the Voyager, so he knew the specs is all, yeah, so before he was taken up. That's possible. Yeah, he knew the specs, so it's silly training. And as for Lower Decks, maybe they just ran out of ideas, and they're not really Lower Decks anymore. They should do a movie. That'd be cool. Finish the 5th season. Maybe that's all they had. Maybe, Remember Berries is all they had. But I wanted to keep doing some of my stuff, because I figured, if I enjoy it, why not do more of it? And this story is neat, so yeah. So I had a neat idea. Like, why don't we do that? Why don't we? Let's go follow up to the Dominion stuff. Let's give the fans an actual realistic DS9 centered movie with some of the DS9 people in it. But not the whole station, because then they can't go anywhere. No, a ship that goes to Deep Space Nine and then goes on an adventure leading to the Cardassian planet. And see, that's what you would do with a Star Trek movie. You'd have them go on an adventure, right? You'd either have them go to visit a planet or something, do an adventure there, or you wouldn't do necessarily a stock villain like Space War. You might have that eventually, because that's fun, but you wouldn't have necessarily a central, like, obvious black hat villain going, ha 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 ha, I'm going to be like Khan again and do stuff. No, reverse Khan. You don't have really them encountering a major villain until near the end, and then discovering, oh, it's this other person. It's this other person. And she's there, but the story is the journey, not the destination. The story is not the battle that takes up the last 4 minutes. The story is them going where they're going on an adventure, or trying to solve a mystery, going somewhere, and that definitely is something Mom would like too. Sort of a mystery story. It is reminiscent of some of the trans things with they find a dead body in the beginning, kind of hook at the beginning, and all that. They clearly wanted to get rid of that character. Yes, and yeah, there is a body count in this episode. In terms of action figures, yes, there are, and the deaths of some of the characters are permanent. Yeah, so one or two of them are gonna go, and they're gonna be done, unless there can always be a mirror universe episode later on where they're alive there because it's another dimension, but not in this one. Yeah, so they're there. Yeah, and I had nothing to do with Lower Decks doing its final season. I'm not Lower Decks. It's just a coincidence that they seem to be doing stuff we're doing, really. Yeah, so we have no pony in that race. It is very interesting that they took my advice. They saw one of my fan films, the making of commentary, and which I said, if you put me on Lower Decks, have my character get phasered with a phaser. The opening scene of last season, there was a guy with a balding head in there, and they gave him a mustache, which was funny. Because when they did that season, I had a beard. And they were like, when they shot him with a phaser. Stunned him. But earlier in this previous season, they had introduced the San Jose as one of the ships. So should be the Milpitas, but that would be too obscure. Now the San Jose makes more sense. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, it had nothing to do with it. Yeah, I would have been for reviving Cito. In fact, they kind of did. They forgot. Season 1, they had a Bajoran girl who's clearly Cito as commander of one of the other ships. So they forgot that they brought her back. And they got Shannon Phil to come back in this other one, and they're like, oh, it's got to be that clone of Cito, right? And that was commanding that ship in that one episode. They already did it. Yeah, they forgot. Yeah. So they're going to have to rectify that by in season 5. They should reference to Kal Kat in there. They probably will. That'd be kind of awesome. Vince Mahoney is really William Boimler. He decides to go, Brad Boimler decides to go, I'm going to go by Vince Mahoney now. If they do that in there, they're definitely watching our stuff. Which doesn't really match. It means that Vince wasn't a kid in 85. He was actually in his late 20s. Oh well. Oh well. Well, he never said how old he was. Younger than Locarno, but yeah, maybe he was just being. Well, yeah, I could see somebody saying something like that. I remember back in the Evergreen days, there was one of the other students that was. We were like 20. I was 21, 21, and Mark Scards was about 18. Just barely 19, not quite 19 yet. And there was another person on the school newspaper. Oh yeah, I guess he was 19. But anyway, she was on the school newspaper, and we mentioned one of us had I think it was my birthday. I mentioned my birthday, in November. And she's all, "You're just babies. You're just children," and turns out she was 26, and I was 21. So women age faster than men. So that's the theory. So she thought of us as babies, even though we're only a little bit younger, just a little younger, like 6 years younger. So maybe Dax was talking about, oh, you were just babies. Yeah, the difference is incredible between 21 and 26. It's incredible. Anyway, so now in our 50s, yeah. Yeah, cringe. No. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of funny. So sure. Yeah. So a little making of brief. This is the scene where we are introduced to Garrick, Andrew Robinson's character, and he gets let loose because on Deep Space Nine, they never officially said that he was a gay character. He was just gay coded. But in this story, or at least pansexual. This one, yeah, he totally is pansexual because it's now 30 years later. So anyway, so not going to show anything. They're just saying that he is, and also so he's still in the spy game or something. But yeah, because he would be. Well, it's duplicitous spy character who you wouldn't think was a spy because he keeps telling everybody he is. So it's kind of weird, an odd thing with that character. But you figure Cardassian intelligence is probably different than that of the Starfleet in Section 31, in that, they deliberately mislead the other people. So, so we have, it's a little different. And also, I've seen other mentions of stories and movies saying there's too much dialogue in some movies where they put out a movie or a story or something. Too much dialogue in a fan film, they put it out and they don't have enough adventure. But in this case, this is a fan film where there's a lot of dialogue in the beginning because they can't physically film them fighting each other. They're plastic. So that's the reason. But there is a space battle at the end. So, I think mostly got meeting rooms and stuff. You don't have much bridge stuff until the end, really, in this. I think there's another bridge scene coming up, but we're going to mostly do meeting rooms. And the dialogue, but it's interesting stuff. Yeah, it's supposed to be a thriller. It's not supposed to be, it's like a mystery, Going around solving a mystery. It's the journey. Yes, all right. So in watching the dailies of today's movie, the Star Trek movie, I want you to reshoot a little bit of the scene. It's a one-page scene. They're on the bridge. B'Elanna is Dutch angled, not intentionally Dutch angled, screwed up Dutch angled. Also, Rutherford is blurry. So those two characters, you don't really need to do Quark or I guess it's Nog, in a Quark outfit. It's Nog. You don't need to do Nog. You don't need to do Esteban over again. You need to do Rutherford and the lines from the Klingon, Crass, over again. Crass is Dutch angle. She's like this. So do that. Also, where he's slightly. There's you want to make it good. I mean, you got a movie. You've got plenty of film. There's it's digital, so do it over. Do that scene. I don't think we need to do the entire scene over again. Just her lines and just his line. We were doing it with the other stuff, but I think with those two, you don't really need to do the whole scene over again. Because there is back and forth. It's just her reaction to him, mainly. Note that in the dialogue that these are close-ups, meant to be close-ups, because not everybody's on the bridge, and we're going to reshoot the whole scene. Because it's just a minute, and I figured it's not going to match. So we're going to reshoot the whole scene. We've got everybody in their place. Everybody's mounted. And let's see, it starts out with open the channel. Okay, let's do this. Well, I figured since the rest of it wouldn't have matched, reshoot the whole minute. Just reshoot the scene. So I did. I reshot the scene. So it wouldn't have matched. So I just shot the scene. Keep in mind to move the panel back and everything. Do the scene. Later on, when there's more bridge stuff, might as well leave the bridge on the bed and just film the bridge on the bed. Just leave it up instead of moving it back and forth. Leave it on the bed. Anyway, so the rest are meeting scenes over there. So that's it for the evening. For this Dave shooting, we did another 15 pages. That's kind of all that's going on here. 15 pages, and we have a little Bashir and Garrick fun, taking from one of our slash stories, and included a scene from the slash story in this story. So this is a slash story. You'll never see that slash story in print anywhere. This is the scene. You're not going to see it again. Okay, we're set up on the 19th on stage 2. We are literally on the set of the Starcrackers. We moved the things over here. They are there, and you walk down here on the Starcrackers. So we have the sick bay set up, and well, the walls to engineering on the bed, so that we can shoot immediately on all the sound stages. So let's do this. Yeah. So far, that was 14 minutes of the script. We blazed through a bridge scene, a battle scene, and then the sick bay and engineering. And yeah, so yeah, we're going to have lunch, and then we'll see how far we get on the rest of the day. Then, of course, when the lights go down and it gets darker, it's kind of hard to film. We don't necessarily have to finish all 45 minutes today, but if we got to at least another 15, then that would be awesome. So yeah, cool. Yeah, so I understand that a lot of the bridge stuff in the last 15 minutes is just bridges back and forth, and the space battle is dubbed in later. So, but yeah, I think there's one other. Well, the next scene is a scene with a bridge, and there's an assailant arrives on the bridge, in a scene reminiscent of what Steve Shives thought of about the character, about disabled characters on a bridge. And what I commented in the comments, what if she defends the bridge with her chair that's armed with weapons? But yes, I'll have to do that. But yes, because she would have like weapons and stuff. Yeah, I think that in that Marvel movie where Professor X gets the other Professor X gets attacked by the witch lady, the red witch. He would have known what was coming. He's a psychic. Yeah, he would have sensed her. Like that was stupid. And also, he would have had shields on his chair because it looked like a spaceship. Anyway, so yeah. So yeah, this is B-roll camera footage on the 19th, and watching the dailies. You gotta go back, and the counselor scene is flawless except for there's an errant cat hair on Uhura. So all the rest of it is good. So all you gotta do is reshoot her. You don't need to reshoot the whole scene because I don't think you could do it as good the second time around. So just her. Reshoot that. And then go on to finish the brig scene with this camera. So let's do that. Noted making of retakes of scenes that were filming during the movie, so they're not considered uptakes or retakes. They're considered, let's do parts of a scene again. And Garrick in the prison scene is Dutch angled for no reason. I don't know what was going on there. He wasn't supposed to be. So all of Garrick, Dutch angled, should not have been. Just straight down. And I don't know which parts are very Dutch angled and which ones aren't. But yeah, he should be straight up. So there's Garrick. And here are Garrick's lines up until when the prisoner says he's tried to put a cyanide thing in there and it didn't work. So here are the Garrick scenes. Okay, another making of redo scene. Another making of scene. I did redos of the Uhura figure here, and it turns out that is not a cat hair. It is a scratch on the figurine. Scratch. So she has a scar across the bridge of her nose, all the way to one cheek. So it's a scar. So you don't need the Wilson redos. And you don't need much of the Garrick redos anyway. Well, there's redos in there, but you don't really need them because yeah, it's a scar on the figure, so it's not a hair. I used the other thing to zoom in. After watching the dailies of the redos, it's still there. So clearly it is not a hair, it is a flaw in the plastic. It got scratched somehow across the bridge of its face. Yeah, so there you go. You can leave it the way it is. You can change it to add the Transformers did certain things. You don't need to. The original scene works. Also, yeah, just in case. I mean, it doesn't look any better. It's not any worse. It's just second unit. So we'll go on to the meeting room scene. It is odd in the story, but it's part of the story that it would seem that they're already aware that Commander O attacked them because the other row is fighting them. So there was a line in there about where's the other row? They're looking for the other Lieutenant Rowe, and it was like well, the other Captain Rowe in this case is like years later, right? It's Captain. Yeah. So I threw in some lines in the other story when doing that. I threw in the line, she's wearing her face, which is fucked up. This is messed up. It was so the bad guy has altered her appearance to look like Roe, so she can fight Esteban, who looks like an older version of Roe. So it's like the clones are fighting each other, basically. This is kind of cool. Yeah. So. And Roe rescued her. She was another Roe. So there's Roe clone. Row your boat. Yeah. So yeah, that's messed up. But yeah, that's what's going on. So yeah, there's the subterfuge of clones going on. Psst. And what better foe to fight Sarah Esteban than Sarah Esteban, or a clone on the planet? Well, the reason is we didn't want to have yet another Dax playing her, and they didn't make very many other figures of other characters. They didn't want a Janeway, that didn't make sense. So it had to be a Roe playing her. Also, Michelle Forbes could pass for a remake of that character anyway. It's probably who they meant for that to be, actually. But yeah, they doctored her up to make her look like a Romulan or a Vulcan or something. In reverse, to make her look different. Commander O. That made way more sense. Also, it would explain why she immediately leaves after Riker confronts her, because that is actually Roe. Yeah, she'd want to leave, not because Riker did that, but because she's upset because it's Riker. That totally would have made more sense. Yeah, they should have done that. Maybe they didn't know they could get Michelle Forbes in the next season. Maybe they just didn't know. 2 years later, she agreed to be in the later one. Anyway, that's a theory. In this story, it's this is the darker sequel, and they're doing things with bridges, and we've gone way farther than any of the others. Over 20 pages at this point today. We don't need to finish all of it today. I would just like to do a few more scenes until it gets dark, and then we'll see how far we get. We're going to have to complete it tomorrow. It doesn't have to be done all in one fell swoop. So, yeah. So it turns out that this is not a cat hair on this figure. She is just scarred. She has battle scars from combat. Ha ha ha. And of course the scene where Garrick is killed and then revived. It was a Cardassian technique for slowing down your metabolism. So he wasn't really dead. He just, he's able to shut himself off. Which is consistent with at least the episode The Wire from the original DS9. And from a couple episodes later when he did something like that. Bad guy was after him and he did something like that. So yeah, the Wire and that other one. Pretty sure, I presume, possibly. One of those. Yeah, where he was like, And of course the line where he says, "No, I'll be the one to kill you." Is a funny line coming from him because that calls back to that story. There aren't really directly any changelings in this one, which is fun. Yeah. Also, they use changelings in Picard season 3 because our fan film used changelings in ours at the same time. So, but yeah, they didn't. They were gonna use the bluegills. They were gonna do that. They set it on the board instead because we did it over here. And they were getting confused with the fan film. Terry wouldn't have been confused. Nobody would have been confused. They would have been fine. The fan film's not that popular. They wouldn't know. Should be. Like and subscribe to the channel. Anyway. Do some more filming. Well, I finally made use of the Dr. Pulaski action figure. Now, what was Dr. Pulaski up to? Considerably older than Dr. Crusher. She was the doctor in the second season of Next Generation. The actress Diana Muldaur died a long time ago. Be kind of funny if her Cillian counterpart was still around, serving on the Concept as the chief medical officer for the mission. She said, that scene was not in the script, but I decided that it made more sense that if they beamed up, they would beam up to not the Chimera sick bay, to the other sick bay, and that everyone would join them, and it would be like that makes more sense. The scene is punchier that way. You get to have all the two crews together, and you get to flip the script on Esri and Sandra ordering the battle stations. Same scene, it's just punchier. It's more like, oh, okay, they're in the other ship's sick bay. But yeah, it's a smaller vessel. But yeah, they're going to go into battle stations, and the rest of this, the next 15 minutes, is all spaceship bridge scenes fighting each other. It's basically a redo of that 5-minute battle scene from Star Trek Picard Season 1. Except this time it's a rematch, and this time Riker and Sela and O go to blows. Well, not Riker, it's the other guy, but the Chimera, and but yes, so yeah, a lot of commanders on ships going back and forth. I don't know how we're going to film that. I guess just use our own stock footage. We can't use their footage, stock footage. Also, yeah, but we shall see what's up with that. Yeah, so. But I know they couldn't have done a 50. Yeah, they couldn't have extended that episode to include like an actual fight in space. Then they would have that one that was reasonable without the copy paste fleet. So, I realize that they kind of tacked that on at the last minute. That's why it doesn't make sense in the Picard show. The Riker just there, and then he leaves as Picard dies. Why did he leave? Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Why would Riker leave? But yeah, makes sense. So. But yes, we have a they're odd concept. So Data and Picard. Yeah, so we have it's not chaos. Well, yeah, sure. 30 minutes done today. In the can. Yeah. This is a lesser card in here. They're having like dying cards, like one after the other for some reason. Okay, it seems to be recording this. Okay, it's a smaller card, but yeah, it just means that's weird. Anyway, whole battle scene again. No, the battle scene again. Come on, set this. Production has wrapped. Principal photography has wrapped on Star Trek Legacy Episode 2, Movie 2. Ooh, and that little teaser at the end was, of course, well, it wasn't really a thing. It was just we were just going around. But yes, yeah. So we are doing that. The Legacy 2. Nothing ever dies in Silly Trek. So yeah, nothing ever dies. Ooh, so there's yeah. You knew they were, from the story where it's going, that they were going to end up finding out where Nick Locarno went, and I tied it into them actually canceling the Lower Decks, which is funny. That isn't why they canceled Lower Decks. It was like Melt's inspiration for a lot of this stuff. Melt's actually an inspiration for the Chimera stories in the first place, from way back in the early DNA of it. And he's an inspiration for Lower Decks as well. So our show is sort of a companion to Star Trek Lower Decks and a little bit of Prodigy. And this episode has been lots of fun. And we did a half an hour yesterday and finished up the last 15 minutes today. And it's not even, is it just barely 2? It's not 2 yet. So we have completed principal photography on the film, watch the dailies, and strike the sets and put them away. Unless there's some other reason to keep them up. But yeah, so here we are on that. And yeah, I don't have much more to say about the making of. This is the second chapter. It's a very different, very weird thing. Yeah, it's silly. Has a little bit of references to some of Mom's stuff, but not as much. It's dedicated. The whole series is dedicated to her. So really need to have the dedication a mother who passed, necessarily in all of the episodes because it's the whole series. But yes, the we have enjoyable story, slightly less funny, more of a Star Trek episode homage to DS9 and Picard show, and a slightly better Picard battle that we did the battle today. Well, originally when they filmed Star Trek Picard, they showed the finale to some test audiences. Apparently they hated it. They said there's not enough here to have the commander just fight Picard. So they got Jonathan Frakes to do some footage on a redressed Star Trek Discovery starship set. It was a Discovery, and reshoot a scene where he is saving the day, and it makes no sense because it comes out of nowhere. It was even referenced in our 2-part episode about the Lucky Clerks episode, the Clerks Gambit 1 and 2. We already referenced the whole first season of Picard in a 2-part episode back during Starship Locations a couple of years ago. So we already did it. And the new one, Discovery, is referencing a lot of the stuff we did with the Planet episode, the Fallen Ones, and some of the other ones in Critical Vitriol. So, not directly, but indirectly, they're just aware of our stuff. We should have more likes and subscribes on our channel because they're totally aware of us. So I don't know what it is makes ours any better than the others. It isn't really. It's just we know Star Trek better than some of them do. So we have a really bizarre sort of thing with so we have some deaths in the story and some reveals, revelations in the story. We have Sarah Esteban, the disabled commander whose chair is apparently armed to shoot bad guys and blow their heads off. and the decapitation line from Mahoney is an homage to Brandon Tunnell's channel, that when he does a horror movie review and somebody gets decapitated, he plays a clip of an earlier horror movie where a guy yells, "Decapitation!" So it's just some other guy that he throws the line in there because it's from something else. But that would be funny. They're slightly ad-libbed the last 2 scenes in here and made it a little longer just because, including that final scene there. They came up with that last night, and I was like, oh, we have to show what happened to Nick Locarno, because what if we don't end up doing part 3 for months and keep everybody stirred up? Like, oh, look, part 3. It's going to take a while to write these. About a week or so to write them. Right, week and a half. There probably will be a third one, but of course the second sequel for follow-up is usually the darker one, and it was. And we're not really sure what we're going to do in part 3, really. It's going to be funnier than 2 was. But 2 is fine the way it is. The poignant scenes with Wilson and that included. It's interesting that Wilson, the action figure, has it's an Uhura. It has a scar across its face. I thought it was a cat scratch. It was not. It's actually a scar on the figure, so it's fine. So there's other ones in there. Sarah Esteban is loosely based on at least 2 or 3 different characters from On Location at First Valley Stories, after First Breath Valley Stories. There was that man in a wheelchair. I don't remember his name. I remember the girl in the wheelchair. Her name was Soledad Rosas. So I remember the girl, and I decided the man died. I think the girl might still be living. I don't know, but apparently Sarah Esteban is a descendant of Esteban, T.J. Esteban from Star Trek 3. That guy that was killed in Star Trek 3. Even though she's got a Spanish accent for some reason, maybe she lived in Mexico all her life. I don't know. but she's a descendant of that's her grandfather. And so we have, but her descendants on her mother's side was Soledad Rosas. It goes back to even further back to the On Location period. Also, there's kind of an implication that the Cillians kind of know who that is, which is funny. She was a charismatic character in the journalism I think the mass comm part of the journalism thing. So she was a slightly different place in there. She had a paper and all that, an underground newsletter, She was plucky and amusing. But yes, but certainly fiery, certainly a wild one. So yes, she was the wild one. Yeah. So there's backstory there. So yeah, down back in the day, yeah. So we have that's cool. Yeah, back in 2000 and 2005, 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. A long time ago. Yeah. Sarah Esteban was a character that we thought of years ago in the Chimera things, put in the movies, and yeah, she's kind of a Rolleran with her hair painted, and the bad guy was a Rolleran as well, and she was also a younger one that was wearing her face apparently. It's gross. It was actually a Rolleran action figure, but yes. So in a sense, you're looking at a reverse Wrath of Khan story, where Khan, or Ricardo Montalban's character, who was stationary the whole time during the Wrath of Khan on the other ship, is actually the good guy that's on the Enterprise saving the ship. Well, a real Khan is the sort of Nero-like bad guy who's on her own ship, who is actually Commander O, who's causing trouble. And which goes back to Picard. And we wanted to have Picard. Well, he's not there in the story. Riker's not there. It's Tom Riker, and we have Seeley there. Because we thought that, the only thing that made that battle work is if they kept going for another 15 minutes and actually did that right. And had, of course, Riker help Picard when he was dying, go to visit Picard and whatever, do that. But also we had to have Worf show up and save the ship. And we had to have Sela of Romulus show up as the Praetor. Denise Crosby fighting her off. We had to have that. Yeah. And I'm assuming that actually was going to happen. The lore and behind the scenes when they were between, and they were going to have her come back, Denise Crosby, between seasons 2 and 3 of Picard and play Vedic. She's going to play the bad guy. She's going to play the evil bad guy. Was she'd been possessed or something, and she said no, and so Amanda Plummer got to play her instead. That's why that scene kind of seems forced, because it was supposed to be Sela. It totally would have made more sense. It would have matched. But yeah, they decided, no, it's not. It's just some other girl. It's Betty. But yeah, so there's the behind the scenes of our episode. Yeah, so it's Mark Scars was on the set during the last couple of days ago. Also during the writing of the story, weeks before that, and during the a funeral and all that for my mother and all that, and there was write another story and film another story. Let's do that. So he was around. He doesn't have any lines in it, but there are lines that seem similar to him. Like there's the tactical guy in the Romulan ship. But yeah. Yeah. Also, some of the characters drop out of the story. We have early on. We have Emoji on the planet with the others on the planet. But she disappears. It's not that she disappeared, it's that she wasn't necessary to the rest of the story. Also expanded the ending scene that was kind of written in the margins on the script about what's B'Elanna's problem with the girls. Decided to close that story arc so that she actually says what it is. She essentially says, I wanted to rant about your being together with Miral being together with the older lady. Well, they're 10 years apart, but anyway, and she's like, and then she decides, I'm going to rant about that, but no, I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave. It's fine. Whatever. Which just sounds more like B'Elanna Torres would actually do that. Look at this other scene with Kal Kat doing that thing on the planet. That was added as well. Just because that needed to be there. Also, the original Wilson introducing the Romulan girl to her mother was kind of screwed up a little bit if Kestra wasn't there, so I threw Kestra and Tam in there and had line up. Yeah, you're really good with kids and special people. It's funny. So Tam is basically Kal Kat at Sunday school. But that's kind of weird. Me. No. It's Tam and Kestra are supposed to be Abra and Imra from the Church Group. That's who they are. The older two. The ones that are now in their early 20s, late teens, early 20s. I think they're in their early 20s now. It's supposed to be them. It's not supposed to be anybody younger. It's supposed to be them. Which is why having you seen where she appears is, wait a minute, she's the other girl. So, oh well. It doesn't really matter because they're not really them. They're just kind of emulating them. Sort of like how Sarah Esteban isn't really a descendant of Soledad Rosas. She's just another character. Also, that was inspired as well by Steve Shives complaining profusely about the ableist bad guy dudes going on about, oh, nobody should be mentally disabled in space in the Star Trek, even though there are plenty of people like that in Star Trek. Being Enterprise and Pike in the original series, and Geordi LaForge being blind and all that, so they're stupid. But he had special adaptations, you see. It isn't that the disabled person, being disabled or autistic, mildly autistic person, you don't want to be normal. You just want to simulate, like the Borg. You want to be normal. You don't want to be cured of something. You want to be assimilated. Anyway, so yes, live long and prosper. And this is the latest of our fan films. Queen Bee Studios was only a limited time only. It was really technically supposed to be just for the grandma thing that got removed and put on one of my other channels, where it's privated. And also there's the Star Trek Legacy first episode, and then we did three others. We did three Transformers ones set in the Transformers universe. An alternate universe where time is sped up forward to the future in the second and third one, and then you discover, it really wasn't. It was the space gods were messing with them, wanted to prove to them that the future is going to end badly. So go back and fix this. Here. Yeah, it was a Q tapestry type of thing, basically. It was a long version of It's a Wonderful Life. They basically go back and, everything's fine at the end, and they're back in 2024. Yay! Okay. And Star Trek, though, they're in 2406, and they're going on a space mission in which we screwed up the star date in episode 1, so just kind of rectified it by throwing a 6 instead of a 2 at the end. And saying, it's 6 months later, even though it wouldn't really match the star date. It sort of matches the Abrams star date, but that's all right. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to go years later at a panel and go like, no, the star dates didn't match up in this story. I'll just say, were you paying attention to the other ones? Same thing I said with the Transformers one. It's like I bet somebody's going to write a long diatribe about the different genera and generations as they speed forward to the Transformers one. And you have a big long paper without having watched part 3 and realized that at the end of part 3 they basically retconned the entire thing into a sideways universe and then fixed it. So it's back where they need to be and nobody's dead in that universe. Kind of similar here, but it's a little subtler. It's similar here. I don't think you're going to see Seska returning to be evil necessarily in a mirror type of story. I don't think that's what's going on. I think they just took her to the Cillian realm, which is kind of like the Prime realm, and they've got her over there. So, yeah, I don't think they can interact because that would be weird. So, they're not going to go, destroy the Federation. He was just being dramatic and laughing out loud hysterically because, he he's all, I destroyed No, he really didn't. Although, that last episode probably did piss off a lot of other people. No, but yes. They're going to fix that, though. So we'll see in season 5 of that. So there'll probably be another movie, hopefully. But right now, I would lunch stuff. Late lunch. So I've returned to add a little to the making of Patterns of Farce, Starship Legacy Part 2. Just to add a little to it. Apparently lost some footage and of the ad stuff. So it's not that the movie needs to be added to, it's to the making of. The movie's fine. We're going to put the movie together. Well, we wanted to add a little to the making of because there's some news in the story. The character of Sarah Esteban is loosely based on San Jose State character, Soledad Rosas, loosely, from the cast of the original Starship Chimera series in 2006 to 2009, and one of the characters in the show. There were two wheelchair bound disabled students, DSP students in the cast. There might have been three if you count that one teacher, but no, two. Let's say two, and three. But yeah, two students. Right. There was a guy that was more severely handicapped, disabled, learning different, and he died in 2008 or so. But there was another one, Soledad Rosas, who lived another 8 years after that, and apparently she was in classes and stuff like that around Spartan Daily and the communications department and other places. Wrote for the Daily a few times, the Spartan Daily paper, the school paper at San Jose State. Yeah, so she was an activist in name, a character for DSP, Disabled Students Program type of things. Activist for other things, rights for minorities and rights for the disabled, right for differently abled, and all that stuff. Similar to her namesake, who was another Soledad Rosas, who died in the 90s. I don't think they were related. I think they shared a similar name. Solitary Rose is probably a really common Latin name. So anyway, they shared a name. So that's why in the credits this is the second Soledad. It's not the 90s one. It's the 2000s one. And it's a little fuzzy in the credits. I redid the credits, but so you're not going to see the original credits. I redid them, improved them. Also, the director of the story is not Clint Cowpoke. The director of the story is Silly Kelly. It's Kelly Bullock that directed most of it. So yeah, he gets credit. But isn't it all Kal Kat in the end? No. Marlo Facu, his wife, was playing Soledad Rosas in this. Yeah, so in this story, she was playing Sarah Esteban in this one. That's right, she was playing Sarah Esteban. The inspiration, Sarah Esteban was inspired of how do I say that? Soledad Rosas inspired the character of Sarah Esteban, who was mentioned offhandedly in the Chimera script in 2006, the very, very first draft. I think the character and that scene in 2373 went all the way into the later drafts up till 2011, when filming actually began on the Starship Chimera fan film, of which 40 minutes was shot and then lost after like a year, and then had to be reshot in 2012, 2013. Then there was more of that up to 2016. We were not actually aware that she passed away. Looked it up, as a San Jose State student. But looked it up. And even though she has an X, a Twitter, I think someone else is maintaining it. Because, there's unflattering, sad-looking bed picture in there. I don't think I think that's old. They're gone. And if they are still around somehow and they survived to the present day, then cool. We didn't mean to say that you were dead then. I think he's gone. Yeah. So yeah, there was an obituary in San Jose and all that. It can't be a different person. Same ages line up. She was in her 20s on the set of SGSU San Jose State on Location Valley Stories series as well. The Real World San Jose, as we called it. She was in that. There were jokes and stories. She was very witty. She had a paper and all that. Yes. They were joking about that, and not about but about joking. It's similar to the Kal Kat story in that. I have mild cerebral palsy, but it's very mild, so I can walk and all that. But she didn't. She had it more severe. So, and autism, Asperger's, CFA, autism, something, spectrum. I have that. Yeah, that's autism as well. I was diagnosed in 1997. But yes, Yeah, so they learning different. The whole idea of doing this episode of the thing didn't necessarily gel at first because we tried to figure out what was we were doing our making of and put it together. Didn't originally start off with the idea of Sarah Esteban as the captain of the ship, Reverse Wrath of Khan. It sort of evolved into that. We went through doing the movie, doing the thing, going like, okay, what would be the antithesis of that? What would be? That's a cliche in Star Trek and in other films. There's an evil admiral on the ship. So as the story went along, as I wrote the story, but then I didn't realize what I was writing. I guess that's what I'm saying. And so I was like, oh well, she's it's kind of the reverse wrath. As I was doing the lines and stuff and realizing what you're spoofing, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It's the reverse. It's the evil admiral on Star Trek cliche, chain of command type of / Wrath of Khan thing, taking over the ship thing. But it's in reverse. It's like, okay, what would happen if the admiral person is a revered admiral veteran who got disabled from combat, and he's a veteran, hearkening to it, father of a World War II veteran, hearkening to that a little bit, going in there, going like, okay, let's do a story where this heroic commander comes aboard the ship, which they've done before, but she actually saves the ship. She's actually really good. So she's which goes with that Steve Shives lecture from earlier on that channel about the ableist incel men going. There shouldn't be any people in a wheelchair on Star Trek because it offended them somehow. No, it's stupid. There can be people in a wheelchair on Star Trek. Maybe they have a special thing. They have to have one for whatever reason. But yeah, her chair is armored and it has combat weapons on it. As Alexander says, it has battle weapons. And Mahoney kind of wants one. He's like, I want one of those. It's just like, but yes, she lasers off the Wessian's head apparently at one point. Well, it's not really the Wessian. It's sort of a mirror Wessian. Sort of, it's not supposed to be him. It's just a bad guy. The other one seemed to be Chakotay from Time Trap Chakotay from Prodigy, who was, but it wasn't really. It was just a Chakotay figure. So yeah, so there's this weird sort of. It's a comedy. It's a comedy, but it's a little more serious. It's the middle chapter, indicating there's going to be a third one. Well, we have some ideas for the third one, but we have not known about them yet. We're gonna put this together, finish this, and put it up before May. So it's all up before May. We've got a couple of days before May. And then have it, let's say, okay, it's up. And let's worry about part 3 now. But yeah, I decided to add to the making of. I lost the footage, it's gone, of this part. And I decided to add to it. Say, like, this is what's kind of going on. She fights another version of her, a younger version who is disguised as Ro, and they fight each other. So it's also the Nero thing from Star Trek Picard, from some Star Trek Nemesis. It's the younger clone fighting the ship. They engineered her and stuff, and yeah, and there needed to be a little bit of a post-allude on this making of anyway, just to kind of go over some things that are in it. No, you're not really going to have an after show because it's not over, really. So there's no after show. Yeah, the idea is that, like in Star Trek Online, Sela is supposed to be the Praetor, the leader of Romulus, because Denise Crosby was available there. You have Vedic, the Amanda Plummer story, rumored that originally they were going to use Sela as Vedic and Denise Crosby. But she didn't want to do it, and so they got Amanda Plummer instead. It's kind of what was going on. So it's kind of like this subterfuge there. It's not official though. I don't think there's anything out there that says that's what happened. They were gonna get Sela, and that would have made more sense. Would have fought Sela, Picard in season 3. But instead of them saying like, okay, like we thought of our fan film, and Mark Scars and I going like, oh, they must have just thought of the Chris from our high school. How would they have known that though? No, it's Yar. They were thinking Sela. Because that doesn't make sense unless somehow Terry Metalis went to school with us, but I don't think he did. That would be interesting though. But we do come up with ideas that are similar, so they should just hire us. Let's have it. I guess Lower Decks is ending to 5 seasons. I think that's about it, though. Once Lower Decks meets up with 2385, it'll be like, oh, we'll have to deal with all that other stuff. End it now and just have it. Yeah, it makes sense. It actually makes sense to do that. Yeah, and the Chimera story kind of retcons the Carno Crass Mahoney backstory and establishes it. We get to go back to this planet that was, without doing time travel, we just go to the planet. Find out all this weird cloning stuff was going on. The Cardassians were trying to harness the Cillian powers and use them to their own ends. To make literally younger versions of the crews of various starships to confuse and disorient the Federation during the Dominion War. They abandoned some of the project, but apparently if there is a version of Sela, that's the Romulan Praetor, they succeeded in some of them. And it's interesting that we have Wilson Uhura, who is clearly a proxy of the counselor archetype, but also, that if anybody's a Mary Sue in the story, it's not, Esteban's not based on my mother running away, but Wilson kind of is a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, the way the character's acted. Yeah, she's kind of based on that. Yeah, the of course Kestra and Tam are based on two church characters loosely, but their gender orientation is switched. So yeah, can't figure out who they are then. Ha ha. They know. They do know. They're aware of the Chimera series, so they're okay with it. Just so long as our real names aren't going out there, they're aware. No. Yeah. Even I don't use the real name in the story. That's in the credits, but it's not the story. They're of age. They're in their 20s. Just so the algorithm in YouTube doesn't go, oh my god, no, they're over 18. And they're not in the story acting. It's Kal Kat doing the voice of them. They're not there physically. It's just, yeah, he's playing the characters with his voice pitchment. So they're not actually in it at all. So there's like, don't worry about it. So you have the, sort of a different sort of, you have a sort of a spycraft thing as well. You have making the Section 31 idea cool, as opposed to the silly version on Star Trek Discovery where they're dressed all in black and they're wearing a badge and it says Section 31 on it. And they're like, ooh, that's cool. Because it's spies. It would be really, as many have said in reviews of that show before and the other one, and this new one that's coming out. Yeah, it would be really dumb for spies to call themselves a spy. It's even actually kind of dumb for James Bond to do that. So it seems that in all those James Bond movies, there's been like 26 of them. They all seem to know who he is, and that, he's James Bond, the super spy. That makes him not a very good spy if they all knew who he is, and then he sleeps with all the ladies and whatever. It's like, that's, no, go back to the spycraft idea of the story. My mother was really good with mysteries and things like that. So like, go back with that and like, okay, how do we make that spooky and weird again? How do we make that in mysteries? How do we make that spooky and weird again? Well, you introduce an admiral character who's clearly in the know about that stuff, and you have them go back to this. That you have to go back to her past vicariously through a story where they're reminded of it. We bring Mahoney and Crass and develop their backstory. They go back to a planet that has a similar origins. They find out their origins. They find out in an old recording that Gul Dukat actually helped put them arrange for the Cillian version of Mahoney, who's really a clone of Brad Boimler, William Boimler, the Section 31 agent guy, the spy guy from the. He's a clone that's been re-engineered to be a kid of him. Also, you have a clone of Sela that's younger, that's re-engineered to be like. Well, apparently she was trapped on the planet like they were, so she's roughly their age currently. So they just weren't aware of her. So yeah, when they were teenagers on the station, they weren't aware of this other half Romulan girl. So they were all there, and they rescued the half Romulan girl. And it turns out that that's an earlier version of Sela, and I really liked the scene where near the end they reconcile that, and the Praetor takes her back to Romulus. They say, you're my daughter. Basically, I'll adopt you. So it's kind of fun. But yeah, so we have like the whole Sela thing, Romulus thing. We have that the spycraft thing. We had to get to this Cardassian planet. We had to have a former ambassador. So of course Garrick shows up. Garrick is helping them out and saying things that are duplicitous because he's a spy. It was a very overt spy though. He was the kind of spy that says, "I'm going to do sneaky things." Well, behind the scenes, he's doing sneaky things you didn't mention. Yeah, so that kind of like Perry Mason type of Man from U.N.C.L.E., actually more Man from U.N.C.L.E. type of spy that's that overt, but secretly there's covert stuff going on, and that's more interesting. Yeah, you don't just have your blatant, good guy, bad guy, black hat character or whatever. You have gray area, and you have him saying like, "Oh, did I say cloning? Oh, I didn't mean to do that." That kind of thing. It's like, you should look that up. I mean, I didn't say that. That kind of thing. It's like, oh shit, okay, look that up. Look that up right now. Trying to find out what that guy's doing. Definitely approve of the premise there. Sure. Yeah. So yeah, another series I get. This is not a series of episodes. It's not a full 8-episode season of anything. At this point, having completed the next 90 minutes, it's basically a trilogy, I guess. I'm going to do a third one of 3 90-minute stories, which is kind of like having 6 40-minute stories, 45-minute stories. So it kind of is, but it's smaller and more condensed, like the Transformers ones were. I'm assuming that part 3 will involve Q, a little bit of time travel shenanigans, at least to the present, so that there's not time travel. So it'd be kind of like the Transformer one, and it'll probably have a wedding and a funeral in it. We don't know what yet. We don't know specifics of what that is, but yeah, they're the and it'll be funny. It'll be funny. I haven't come up with anything other than that yet. There's going to be a scene in. I thought of one scene. I haven't written it yet. There's going to be it's going to be funny. Q will be back. Because of course he will, and the Continuum, of course. Well, we'll see about the Continuum. See if it's not something. They'll change it up a little bit. So we'll see about that. Maybe. They put back all the sets, put everything away. So yeah, we'd have to take some of them out, set them up. That wouldn't be too hard. But yeah, with other things going on in early May, there won't be any filming in May. So in early May. So I want to finish this up and do that. It is cool that Esteban is an homage to Still Dead Roses. That's kind of cool. But yeah, that's cool. And there's a dedication thing. But yeah, and then since I made up Marlo Facue and his wife, Facua and his wife, I never thought about it, but maybe Arena Donna Fahu was originally Latin, so she can totally do the accent. Yeah, maybe she's Hispanic. I hadn't thought of that, but maybe she is. Yeah, she's, I can do that. No problem. No problema. Yes. I know that they always have like you always hear in the dumb sitcom movies, somebody says no problemo, trying to be Latin, and that's completely wrong. Spanish teacher in the 90s lectured for a full class on the different verb tenses and different adjectives and things of that, and starting with that one when somebody said no problemo in the class. Um, and said, no, it's incorrect because Spanish has a feminine and a masculine words because it's Latin. The feminine and masculine words, if you're going to say no problemo, that is incorrect Spanish, it is no hay problema. No hay problema. Because you have to accent the verb and the adjective. No hay problema. Problema would be correct, yeah. You can shorten it to no problema if you wanted to, but you kind of have to have the hay there to be formal. I guess it doesn't gel as much, but yeah. And there was a Jamaican Haitian guy in the class that said like, well, they say no problemo where I'm from, and it was well, that's because of the French influence from the Creoles. They would say it wrong. Okay. They would say it wrong. Yeah. Yes. That's pretty funny. Yeah. So here's the making of. Yeah. Legacy movie 2. I redid the credits. I redid some of the space background. The credits are easy to redo, so I redid the background and kind of copied the earlier. I think they're actually the credits from Destinations thrown in there, or something similar to before Destinations, or the Transformers. That's fine. I just borrowed my own stuff. You have in the can somewhere. I've seen the footage. There are space fleets, stock footage. So you don't need to do any, yeah, it's all stock footage. So he is in focus. And you have the side to side with the other one. This one does that okay. But yeah, doing another one here. The Chimera series involved some of the Spartan Daily students and so on. And we did some adventures with that. Mainly, because the final year of state was I had an extra semester. They gave me like I had this extra unit to get the full units so you could go into grad school later. Even though I didn't end up going into grad school, but I wanted the extra unit just in case I could get up to at least a 2.9 or 3.0 or something. So I could get I could say I got a high B's and A's. Because of that one class that was earlier, then I got a C plus because I had to retake a class, and a C plus and another one. So it wasn't all straight A's. It was a couple of C's in there. The law class was hard. That was a tough class. That was a tough one. And the statistics class was hard. That one was hard too. That was the evening one that had solid dead roses in it as well. So, and that was the one where there was lots of joking and jesting about like stuff, gender politics and things like that. Everybody was all on point, though. It was funny. It was all good. I was like, yeah. So, and this story also does a little bit of the politics thing, but doesn't actually name names of countries because we don't want to get YouTube's algorithm to freak out and go like, "Oh my God, he's discussing something that might upset the algorithm." It's like, no, I don't mention names directly. So you can guess. You can just guess. What they're talking about, and it doesn't take sides with that. It just says, it's like the Dominion War and the Bajoran Cardassians, as opposed to Israel, Palestine, or Ukraine and Russia, or something. It's kind of what's going on, and that's two different things, obviously. I like how it went so far. It looks good. The story, and so the Star Trek story was the earlier Chimera novel that became some of the basically all of the Cillian Realms books that were published on YouTube are from that era and then just polished up and put out in the late 2010s, the late 2017 to 2020 roughly. All those Cillian Realms books are from that time period at San Jose State, or re-edited, re-put up, including the novelization of the first Chimera movie from 2019 as well. which didn't actually include the Esteban story. It was taken out in post. And this story adds it back in and says, I don't know. There's just this one brief scene with them, Tuvok, and them mentioning that Klarna was redeemed and all that, which completely butts heads with the end of Lower Decks and the other version. But I figured a way around that in this story, in this version. I figured out a way around that. I said, okay, maybe they're all part of that weird Cardassian experiment. And they're actually not who they say they are, which is not a dream, but it's the old clone thing. It's okay, so there's the evil version of them or something. But I flipped the script a little bit, made us subvert expectations, and then Locarno was run off, apparently, so we're going to have to find out what happened to him. We do sort of see a scene at the very end, it's not a post-credits because it's in the credits in the movie, where he shows up. And he's like, yes, ha 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 ha, I'm actually a clone of this guy. And so with this other guy over here. And Seska Sito, she's a clone too of a clone. And it's all part of the plan. Which is kind of like them being changelings a little bit as well. Which is cool. So what was the evil Vedic doing in the Picard show? Well, she was also monkeying around with Cillian powers. Yeah, so they were all doing that. The Federation was also doing that. They're trying to figure out the Cillian powers. And I liked the idea. I threw in a line where it said, the evil changeling virus Section 31 made, which would make them automatically disbanded and all of them thrown in jail in real life. The evil virus they organized, they basically said, they were using Cillian powers to do that. So Silly Trek is in the DNA of Deep Space Nine. That they were doing that. They were using it for evil. Okay. It's a Deep Space Nine. All the way back. Actually, it's further back. It's the Next Generation as well. The Borg. It's like a Borg virus, but for changelings. It's the Borg. It's the Borg. It's sort of like that. And we thought of the Borg before Star Trek did. But we were thinking of the same thing on the same length. Yeah, that I've gone over before. Yeah, in literally 1986. Before Next Generation existed. We're there should be cybernetic zombies running around at the school, invading and assimilating us, and taking us over and stuff, and making us like zombie people. Yeah, they should do that. We thought of that. Yeah, great minds think alike, I guess. I don't know. And we had to have one of them show up. We had one of them in Cillian version show up in one of the stories. But yeah, the idea here is that the Locarno that's in Lower Decks is kind of its own timeline anyway, really. We didn't have to go there. We could have just said Ceto, because Mariner can't be there. Yeah, Mariner can't exist. Burnham can't exist. Spock does not have a sister. Never had a sister. Cybok's his brother, but he doesn't have a sister. Cybok's his half-brother, and Kirk wasn't even aware of it in Part 5. He's like, you got a brother? What? You don't have a brother. He didn't have a sister either. So Burnham is an anomaly. She shouldn't be there in Discovery at all. She's an anomaly. That's clearly a different timeline where she exists. Yeah. There you go. So that means that the Locarno stuff could also be sex suspect. Because, of course, of the actual, Burnham. Mariner Mariner and Freeman are named after Mike McMahon's siblings. So he threw them in there just to this would be funny, that's what they are. One of them is his sister. Beckett is his sister. His real name is Beckett. So he threw that in there, and so in this version of the story, that whole show is also not canon. It's another universe. It's a timeline, the multiverse. And even though it's canon with Discovery and it's canon with the Strange New Worlds, it's not canon with Next Generation, really. So they can do whatever they want. But maybe Shannon Phil is going to have a return in season 5. They wouldn't just bring her there for one episode. Come on. They're going to say the Cardassians made a clone of her. They're going to do that. And that would be... I bet they're going to do that, and that would be perfectly fine. All right, they cloned her. That's kind of what we retconned a little bit here. Also, we said, okay, well, the Locarno that was killed and that used the Genesis device, which stole from the Ferengi and the Cardassians. That Locarno is another version of. There's several of them. He was just another version of it. It wasn't the original. He was playing his character like a mirror universe version of himself anyway. So, yeah, it was just a clone. It wasn't him. Yeah, they're gonna find that out when the proto matter on the planet. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll see my version and go, "Oh, we're not going to do that. Then we're going to go in an entirely different direction because we saw the Kal Kat parody in it." Yeah, we screwed up. Yeah, Shannon Phil is not in this, mind you. No, it's just that we thought that death was stupid because all these other times in the series, the yellow shirt yellow shirt in Next Generation was the red shirt in the original Star Trek. And they would end up being killed, or the main characters would end up surviving. And it wouldn't be a thing that they killed off the yellow shirt. Yeah, they really shouldn't have done that. But giving a chance for them to survive via some sort of sci-fi means is fun. If they say, like, okay, the other thing happened. And I like that the Sela thing, they show up and they're like on the bridge. And they realized, and Esteban realizes that, wait a minute, the Cardassians couldn't have understood the play here and figured out that Sela will someday be the Praetor. Because that would have been like 20 years later. That doesn't make sense. But what if they orchestrated her eventually becoming the Praetor and their actual plan was actually in effect? Ooh. And all of that, the General O rising to power, she's in the story as a bad guy. And they take her out because, yeah. But the Borg tried to assimilate Sandra Talisman's character. And she's still got the Borg stuff on her face. She doesn't seem to care that she's got the Borg stuff on her face. Mainly to hide the fact that that's yet another Deanna Troi figure. It's yet another one. But yeah, there's some fun stuff in there that fans can go like, oh, is that? No, oh, okay, all right. And of course, there's several many layers to the Bashir and Garrick relationship as well. And O'Brien, apparently the Slash story, the blasphemy, happened in real life, and and yes. Those two are doing it. That not only it's multi-layered. It's like, okay, Bashir and Garrick, the actors, were doing it. They had a kid on the set, and they had to like make it look, oh, Kira's pregnant because of some space gobbledygook. We can't explain it. Yeah, the bad writing even back on Deep Space Nine. All they had to do was say she was sleeping with Dr. Bashir and go there and just replace the Odo thing altogether because she had no chemistry with Odo at all anyway. She really didn't. It should have been her and Bashir. That would have made sense. He was a little younger than her, but it would have made more sense. And they could have just said, okay, we were trying to keep this pregnancy a secret all this time, but yes, I'm fooling around with her. They should have done that. They had better chemistry. That's what they should have done. No Bashir later with Dax. That makes no sense. Would not have happened. Could not have happened. Even if in the games, in one of the timelines, they say, oh, that's her husband, Julian. No, not even in the games. Not even in Star Trek Online. It makes no sense. It was Bashir with Kira, and they had a child, and his name is Kiriyoshi. And it's not an O'Brien, he's a Bashir. That makes sense. But also, there's a double layer. Actually, secretly, Bashir was bisexual. And not just for O'Brien, but for Garrick. And Mr. Garrick is all like, yes, and they had this weird kink thing going. And apparently at one point, they accidentally killed one another and had to revive each other or something. And then there was this other kink where they tried on each other's shirts. And O'Brien thought it was funny, but it wasn't just funny. They were intimate. So, yeah. So, yes, Garrick and Bashir also did it. And at the end of the story, of course, they do we always throw in some kind of a gag about that. And they're totally on board with it. And they're like, yes, Dr. Bashir, you'll never forgive yourself or me if you do not kiss me immediately. He's all, very well, Mr. Garrick. Just right there, like, mwah. Chef's kiss. It's brilliant. And then, of course, we had to throw in the line where Bielana Torres is the main Paris in the story. She's in the background. She doesn't do much, but she's in the background, mainly in engineering, and in the story because it's funny. And Barclay's in it, so that's cool. And we have that discussion that she's building up through the whole thing is just a gag at the end where she's like, yeah, I was gonna lecture you two about. She learned something from the battle. She learned something. Her character develops further along. See, that's how you do it. Zack Snyder with your silly Rebel Moon thing. That's not how you do it. You develop a character through the course of a story, and you have them discover an epiphany, and they change a little. And she goes like, "Oh, all right. I was gonna lecture you two about your relationship. You got married. Her daughter got married to Muriel Pauline O'Brien, and Muriel Paris get married. They're 10 years apart, but that's still fine. They're adults. It's fine. And yeah, it's gay. But yeah, she just decides, all right, after all that happened with the war and everything, and having survived the space battle, yeah, she realizes, well, all right, I'll just forget about it. I was going to lecture you about that, but after all this, that's really stupid of me to do that. So I'm not going to. Unlike other right-wingers that might still be on about it, but she decides, no, that's just dumb. How do I do that? Like, all right, that's development for that character. That's how she would probably take that. Because it's like, yeah, they're married for like what, 6 years now or something, 3 years now. But yeah, they keep doing that gag or whatever, and we had to finally put Bielana in there. So that's what I was doing there. Since this is kind of an after show thing, even though I haven't finished putting together, I just wanted to add that. That's what's going on. It's in honor of Soledad Rosas, the student from the school years ago. As it's in honor of course, Mom, the whole Star Trek Legacy and the Transformers Legacy thing. In honor of that, if Paramount would like to give us a call, they can find us. We're still listed. Call us up and say, all right, we want you guys as showrunners on Star Trek Legacy. Get over here and send us a script treatment. We want you because yeah, you're gonna do it better than we do it. Ha 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 ha. It's just your fan film. You do realize that we just do fan films, right? It's a spoof. It's a parody. Do an animated one. No, they're not gonna do that because then they'd have to pay us. They're not gonna do that. Anyway, so live long and prosper.